Kathy again. How are you today? All right, so part three, okay, of the orgasm neuronal pathway, all right, to having that orgasm. But we're going to now move from the neuronal alone to the neuronal or neurological psychological connection or pathway. All right. So the neurons and the nerves have their role. We talked about that before. So go back and listen to our talk from yesterday, I think it was. And now we're going to talk about the psychological effect that those neurons had with all those chemicals that were produced, right? Oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, prolactin, right? Even opioids are produced, and it gives you this euphoric effect when you are stimulated, right? So when you are getting that sexual stimulation, right, that is when we're going to start getting that neuropsychological connection, connecting us into a different area where we can now make pathways to our orgasm. Very important. So that sexual stimulation, that internal sexual buildup that you get, that arousal that you are going to experience, and even the actual intention of what you're feeling, right? So the emotions that you're feeling, all of that is going to come back and it's going to magnify and become bigger, and it's going to make you feel more aroused. And that's the intent. So when we get all those erogenous zones getting, wired up and fired up, we want to get those emotions and that sexual building up. For example, you get some flushing, you get some flooding, you're going to get some shooting sensations, even some tingling sensations, right? And some spasms. You're going to be feeling that while you're being stimulated, right? And that arousal is going to get more, and that sexual stimulation becomes more. And then you actually feel like you're in ecstasy. It's like, wow, you feel so happy with all that stimulation going on. And then you feel relaxed, and sometimes you feel like you're having a lot of pleasure. It's like, wow, I'm really enjoying this, which is why people like to have sex, because they enjoy those feelings. Now, once you continue having those feelings with your partner, you now have to remember, to have an orgasm, you have to lose control. You cannot be in control when you are planning to have that orgasm. This is where some people disconnect and lose that ability to have that orgasm. You want to actually lose control. So don't let your mind think of anything else but what you're engaged in at this moment. So you hyper focus. So you move from that area where you were enjoying all the pleasurable stimulation to the hyper focus, which is what I talked about before. Go back and listen to what we talked about a few days ago, yesterday, and the day before that. So you actually are going to feel that hyper focus, and that focus is going to be more of what you're feeling. So you're going to focus on your interoception, which means you're going to feel what you're feeling and say, wow, I'm enjoying this. You're going to actually feel your partner too. You're going to say, ooh, your partner is giving you great vibes, and you're going to tune into that. And you're going to tune into the act itself. The sexual act itself is going to make everything hyper-focused. So you focus on all that. You just pay immense attention to that. And then you're supposed to move into an absorption state. Now, the absorption state, they actually say, is a personality trait. So there are some questionnaires that you can get that you'll find whether you really know how to absorb or get absorbed when you're being aroused. Absorption, again, is something you're basically born with. Can you improve it? Probably with training, but the most important question is to focus and to know whether you're getting into that absorption state. That absorption state is a mental state where you have an intense attention to your imagination, what you're feeling. And this is where you can imagine and you can just think of things. Remember what we talked about yesterday? That will make your mind go even crazier than it's going at this point. So that intense attention to your imagination happens when you're absorbed, and you're just doing that. You're thinking about all that imagination plus sensation. So you're thinking of what you're feeling. So that sensation, that perception together, your partner, all that is magnifying your chemicals and magnifying your experience. So that absorption is very important. So you need to be able to go from A to B, which is from hyperfocus to absorption, so that we can now go to C, which is self-forgetfulness. We want you to forget yourself. We don't want you to think of who you are when you're in the throes of passion with your partner, when you're engaged at this point. Remember, pre-orgasm, you want to be able to now forget who you are. You're not even thinking about who you are. You're not even thinking about who that partner is, he or she. You want to make sure that you are not there. And that is when you're moving towards another level, which is the altered state of consciousness, which is where we all want to get, because that is when the orgasm is near. Okay? What is the altered state of consciousness? That is when you're no longer awake. So you know how you're awake right now, we're awake. In this case, it's like, you're not as awake as you used to be. It's an altered state, a deviation of wakefulness. And that sense of self is also altered. The altered sense of self is like, ooh, who am I? You've moved from that self-forgetfulness to like, who am I? It's like, whoa, this is weird. And that you're going into that altered state of consciousness by knowing, number one, that it's like, my gosh, I'm not me. That's how you know. Also, your thought processes have changed. They've altered. You're not thinking the same way. It's like, whoa, you're not even thinking. And it's like you're almost in the zone. Remember we were talking about the zone? So you're going into that zone where it's like, whoa, it's like, and if you've been in the zone, right, whether sports or some other activity, you'll know what I mean. You're in a state where it's like there's nobody there except you and your partner. So that thought processes are different now. Your attention is completely different. It's completely on a different level. It's so different that it's not the same as when you pay attention when you're just studying or when you're just talking to somebody. Now you're actually having a situation where you are like wondrous. It's like, whoa, this is wild what I'm experiencing, right? And then time changes. It's altered. And even your sense of feeling is altered. And your space is altered. It's like things are different. Now, this altered sense of consciousness is where most people land. And that's where most people get to go into that orgasm. And that orgasm is really good, great, superb for some people. But there are a few that move from ASC, altered state of consciousness, to the transcended state. Now, I'm sure you've heard about this before, transcended sex, right? Transcended sex is when you go beyond the material presence. So you are no longer on this earth. In your mind has taken you to a different plane and completely different experience. Not everyone has had that experience of transcendent sex. And that is something that is a little bit more for people that are more sexual or have the expanded sexual response, which we're not going to really go into. I really want to talk about the classic response of the orgasm. So when you transcend, again, some of you might have transcended, you are going beyond the material presence. It is like you're out of body, you're out of mind, you're in a different reality, different dimension. You actually feel that your mind is just blown, and it's just a completely different experience from the altered state of consciousness. But the key is either one can take you to the orgasm. So it can happen after the orgasm or during the orgasm, where you can now transcend. And a lot of people do not transcend and they just go straight to that orgasm, right? They just go and then they come back down. But right now we're focusing on knowing what is before the orgasm. And that is key. You've got to go through those steps. And the last step is the altered state of consciousness. If you are not altering, if you are not losing your state of wakefulness, you are not moving towards that orgasm. So we need to learn how to hyper-focus and how to know that the imagination has to be creative and it has to be able to give you some feeling towards going to creating that pathway of getting that orgasm. So remember, my game plan is to teach you how to create your own orgasm, and you've got to lose control to do that. So when you're thinking about creating that orgasm, you've got to remember that you are not going to be thinking of anything but your partner, yourself, the sensations, and what you're feeling. And of course, if your partner is really stimulating you, that is what's going to work, because it's a combination of all senses. And when you are able to move into that altered state of consciousness where you're not feeling yourself, you're on the right road. And so you're not feeling that you're yourself, and you're moving into a plane where you are not able to explain it. It's hard to explain. I'm trying my best to explain it to you, but you're not able to put it in words because it's such a beautiful feeling of euphoria. All right. So when you're feeling euphoric, you're getting to the right point. So your partner needs to know this information so that your partner can know what you're trying to achieve. Now, your male partner usually does get there. That's why they have their orgasms very easily compared to females. But we have that neuropsychological issue that sometimes can be stopped and halted so that we are not going further into this altered state of consciousness. Can it be scary? Yes, it can be scary. But it's only scary if you've never done it before. But if you've done it before, it's not scary because you're used to it. But know that it's not something that you're going to regret. Now, I do know some patients that do pass out and do lose consciousness, right? And they do not like to have orgasms when they do that. And so they're seeking help to stop that. And so there are certain treatments we'll use for that. But we're talking about the very simple, common classic orgasm where you just come and have that experience in that intimate setting with your partner, and then you do not lose consciousness. For those that do, depending on the issue, find a doctor that you can discuss that with, and we can help resolve that. In the meantime, when you're having a simple climax or simple orgasm, you want to be able to not pass out and enjoy the resolution of the orgasm. But we are not talking about the orgasm until next time. Today, I wanted to talk and focus on your imagination and your ability to get into the zone and get into a state of altered consciousness, and to get into a state of transcendence, which is just persevering, which is just keep it going, just keep on going. Now, I know it takes two, but you want to keep on having all that buildup and all that sensation as long as you can, so that you can transcend and experience that mental, emotional, physical, and even spiritual movement beyond the present area where you are. You're out of, out of space. You're in outer space. It's like you're not where you are, but you're aware of it, but you're really not aware of it. So again, that's something that you can aim towards. It's something that you can plan to do. It is very, very teachable, but I wanted to mention it to you so that you know that it does involve communication with your partner that would be patient to understand what you're trying to achieve. And if you walk your partner through the steps, they sometimes will go there with you. Now, women tend to transcend more than men because we are more apt to have the absorption personality trait. So the absorption, they say now, is something that you can get tested for, and you can actually see yourself being absorbed in other parts of life. For example, if you're watching a movie, you get highly absorbed into it. Me, when I'm with my patients, I get very highly absorbed with my patients that everything else stops. I lose track of time. So when you are absorbed in other parts of your life, it means you can get absorbed intimately with your partner. So that absorption is something that some people are born with, and some people have to improve on to make sure that they can go from that absorption to the altered state of consciousness and maybe to the transcendence. But for right now, for simple pathways to get that orgasm, I will stop at the altered state of consciousness, ASC. I don't have to push you into the transcendence. I want you to get to the ASC so that you'll be able to now focus on getting into the simple classic orgasm. Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk about that with you today because I know that that's the end of the pre-orgasm. The next step is the orgasm, and we'll talk about that next week. I hope you learned something today. Just remember, hyper focus. Remember, lose control. Remember, imagine intensely what you want to happen to you in your intimate moments with your partner. And remember, the psyche, the mind is so creative. It can be so vast in going from one thought to the other in terms of what you're experiencing. So don't forget, it's a wide spectrum out there for you to go from one into the other in terms of imagining what you want to happen to yourself. Again, refer back to what we talked about yesterday, and enjoying the actual results of your focus and your intense imagination, which is beyond belief. Remember, creating your own orgasm. You can do it. I'll see you next week. Have a good night. Bye.